Joining us now, investigative reporter for The Washington Post and an MSNBC contributor, David Fahrenthold. Also with us, MSNBC chief legal correspondent, host of The Beat on MSNBC, and the only man who can forge a friendship between Bill Kristol and Fat Joe. And he did it on The Beat. There it is, right there.
Wait,
beautiful.
That one doesn't have the sunglasses.
It's a beautiful moment.
I don't know how much time you spend in the nightclub, Willie, but we're calling him Bill Kristol.
Oh! That's genius. Does he have any idea what that means?
Bad or so bad meaning bad or bad meaning good?
No, it's
he knows
excellent.
what it means.
It's excellent.
And we're thrilled to celebrate the one-year anniversary of The Beat. And the two of them together, I've watched them together offset now. They've become real friends.
So it's real.
Magic.
It's not like a TV friendship.
It's a real friendship.
That's
and I mean offset as in off the set, not like offset from Migos. Yeah, because I know you would be confused by that.
They were. See, Ari and I could go on like this all day, and everyone would just glaze over. We'll do it off the set.
They were at a club.
Off the set.
I don't know if you know this. At 2 in the morning, One Oak, the two guys, they had bottle service going on. It was and Kristol. Don't sell that guy short. That's all I'm just saying, right? You want to be out with him at One Oak at 2 in the morning with Fat Joe and see what happens. It's almost.
Well, I love Bill Kristol, but no, I don't.
A lot of people.
No. Don't sell him short.
I will say this in all seriousness. A lot of people don't know when Fat Joe said it's about us, it's about trust. He was talking about the Weekly Standard.
Wow. That's an amazing thing. Congratulations on the one-year anniversary.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. No, there's no turn for this. No one knows where to go from here.
No, I had you. We're doing Fat Joe lyrics. We could go on all day. All right, David Fahrenthold, let me get to you on your reporting on Trump and emoluments. That clause has been thrown about for a couple of years now. People looking for ways that the president may have violated that. What are you finding in your new reporting?
Well, here's what changed this week. So there's this clause in the Constitution, you mentioned it, the Emoluments Clause. It says that presidents can't take, quote-unquote, emoluments from foreign governments. But for 200 years, presidents sort of stayed away from testing that line, and we didn't really know what emoluments meant. Now we have an answer from a federal judge in Maryland, and the answer is emoluments, in his definition, means almost any business transaction Trump does with a foreign government. Not just sort of bribes or payoffs, but foreign governments paying his business to rent a ballroom or a hotel room or something else. Well, that means that now there's a huge, well, at least a sizable universe of transactions that the Trump organization has done and is doing with foreign governments that may violate the Constitution. So we're just now trying to figure out what that means and to try to get our hands around how big is that universe of foreign government transactions.
And what have you found so far? You've had your legal pad out for about 3 years now, keeping track of all that. What have you found in your reporting?
Well, I should say, first of all, there's no sort of official list from the Trump organization. They've given us nothing. And so what we've done is sort of pieced together things from media reports. So there's been a few instances where foreign embassies have hosted big events at the Trump Hotel in D.C. So that's the Kuwaiti embassy, the Bahraini embassy, Azerbaijan, and recently the Philippines. In addition, a state-run Chinese bank rents space in Trump Tower. That lease is coming up for renewal soon. So that's also basically a conduit for Chinese state money to the Trump organization. Beyond that, we're still trying to figure it out.
So, Ari Melber, on this point, I mean, there's been so much conversation about the Emoluments Clause, and a lot of times people will just dismiss it as saying, okay, this is basically a legal pipe dream. It's never been defined in the modern era. It's never really been used. Does this fundamentally change that?
This doesn't fundamentally change that, but it is courts getting back in the business of overseeing things that Donald Trump is doing. And look, any other president could have done this. I mean, many presidents have been lawyers. They could have operated a law firm while in office. They could have technically done that. But then if they took on foreign clients, they would also have run into this. The difference is no other president has pushed this hard to try to profit while in office. So it's unlikely to be the kind of thing that has a systemic or existential threat to the Trump presidency, but it is important that judges are saying very clearly, we will, if forced by a president acting so brazenly to profit while in office, we will oversee this to some degree.
Hey, Gene Robinson, I want to ask you a political question about this. You've got a situation here where a lot of people have pointed to the notion that a potentially salient political argument against Republicans and Donald Trump is that the swamp was supposed to be drained. The swamp's not been drained. The swamp's swampier than ever. This emoluments question seems to me of a piece with that, and yet it seemed to get very little traction over the course of the last 18 months. Why is it that Donald Trump's obvious abuse of the office in violation of the Emoluments Clause, or at least the apparent violation of it, why is this not more politically getting more political traction? Why hasn't it gotten more political traction, and might it in the future?
I think it might in the future. Why it hasn't to this point, I'm not entirely sure. It could be because we've never been here before. I mean, this federal judge in Maryland just for the first time told us what he thinks the Emoluments Clause really means. So nobody has in politics, I think, has any muscle memory as to how to use that clause in the Constitution, and really how it applies to Donald Trump. We don't know, but we're going to find out. I would think that on its face, the whole thing is scandalous. Look at the way he promotes his golf properties, for example. When he was in Britain, he went to Scotland for the weekend, had no official business there, wanted to play golf, I guess, but also wanted to raise the profile of his faltering golf club up there. So, this should be a huge scandal. It really isn't. And if I sound a bit distracted, I'm still just picturing Bill Kristol and Fat Joe in a stretch Navigator, sort of cruising, the streets of Lower Manhattan. I just think that's.
I think we need to change the chirons for Bill Kristol on the show going forward.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to try to bring it back a little bit here, because I don't have anything to say about Bill Kristol.
About Fat Joe.
Or Fat Joe, for that. One of the things that worked for Democrats in 2006 when they retook the House was they said the Republican Party is the party of corruption. That was their mantra. They hit it time and time again. It was an effective tool. I think that when we're talking about these foreign government payments, when we're talking about literally any business that's happening at the Trump Hotel, you can effectively make that argument. And I guess this is a good question for Michael Steele, because he's been in the trenches. You certainly have seen what type of arguments Democrats can make. How potent is that case that, in fact, Trump is using his position to enrich himself? How potent a political weapon is that Democrats can use?
I don't think it's that potent at this point, largely because roughly a strong, solid third of the electorate doesn't give a damn. They don't care. And so it has not been able to really get the kind of traction that you would think. I think, and largely because the remaining two-thirds are rather agnostic about it. I think to the earlier point about being that Gene made, being in this space for the first time, we really don't know. I mean, most people can't say emoluments, let alone understand what it is. So I think that is the truth across all lines. It's not something that is just out there that people have some understanding, as Gene said, some muscle memory for. This is new space, and until there is a defining moment in that space that crystallizes or crystallizes for the electorate.
Count it out.
I think we're gonna see this on a day-to-day basis, and it won't really register at this point.
David, I'm going to go to you. I want to actually
pleased with himself. Look at that. Look how happy that man is with himself.
I want to pick up where Sam was. I actually was at the DNC yesterday with Tom Perez and all his folks trying to help them with messaging. And the way you kind of can mold that emoluments, obviously, is just there is a lot of polling showing that voters, Democrats, independents want fair play. And it's an overall thing. It's an overall kind of justice in the system. So without pointing at Trump and saying that's the bad guy, that there is this overall kind of sense of things are just, if you kind of play it that way, that things are just not fair right now. And that's a very resonant message.
Well, I think you're right that there's certainly a possibility there. And I think there could be sort of a distinction between the message that Trump is getting rich off the presidency or Trump is advertising his golf clubs. That's one thing that I think Michael is right that the public seems not to care that much about. This is a slightly different issue because we're talking about a guy who has power over America's foreign policy, doing business with the other players in the world of foreign policy. And so the question there could be, is he serving his own interests or is he serving your interests when he deals with the government of the Philippines or China, other countries that actually are paying him money kind of on the side?
David, that's exactly the message there is. Exactly where you say, is he working for himself or is he working for you? And that's the kind of simplified message that the Democrats are
they haven't used it. I mean, you look at any of the ads that they've run, they haven't used that message. Maybe it's because it's too in the weeds. Maybe because there's many other existential issues out there.
It's one of the craziest things in the world, though, because if you go back, Casey will remember this really well. In the 2012 presidential campaign, one of the things that Barack Obama's team did to Mitt Romney was to frame him with the notion of he's never been in it for you.
Yeah.
And the notion of Romney as a self-dealing, self-centered billionaire, profiteering, ripping off the American public was an
47%,
incredibly salient political message in a presidential campaign. And Donald Trump makes what Mitt Romney did, or could be accused of doing, look like small potatoes on the level of self-dealing, self-enrichment. Right. Why Democrats can't capitalize on this, given the history that they've had in doing it successfully in the past, is mystifying to me.
Can I just jump on that point, John, real quick? I think part of it is because of exactly what you just said. With Mitt Romney, he was aloof and away from those very same people who then made a judgment about that. Here, people see Donald Trump as fighting for them. So his rich guy connections, his New York background, all of that, they consider an asset in the war against those they felt they needed to go out against. And Donald Trump has been the tip of that particular spear. That's why it doesn't resonate or stick on him the way it did Mitt Romney.
All right, David Fahrenthold, and the most famous legal pad in all of journalism. Thanks for your reporting. We appreciate it. Ari, let's talk about the Cohen revelation from last night. What should we glean from it? What should we take away from it? Where do you think it came from?
This is very big. I don't know where it came from. The sourcing remains technically anonymous, but it raises the question, number one, was Donald Trump working with advanced knowledge to be part of an international conspiracy, number one. Number two, is this why he made the Air Force One phone call? Because the Trump defense never made sense. Why do you need to advise people how to defend a meeting that you say you knew nothing about and didn't attend? Right. And then three, did anyone along the way lie to authorities about this? Mueller has proven he is willing to charge people just for that. And so if somebody was basically lying about who knew it, who was in the room where it happened, to quote Hamilton, Michael Cohen is putting himself and Donald Trump in that room. And so the question is, and Lawrence was referring to this earlier on Morning Joe, did other people already lie about that? And is this coming out publicly because it is a time for choosing?
Or have other people already talked about Mueller and not lied about it and
not
informed him what actually happened?
And simply, who else was in that room?
Right. Important follow-up. Did Jay-Z ever lift the boycott on Cristal? You bring up, remember in like 2005 or 6, said no more Cristal. Has that been lifted and now it's okay to call Bill Cristal?
Well, you raise an important point, actually, because there was a whole discussion around whether these executives from these companies were dissuading rappers from quoting them. On 44, the most recent solo Jay-Z album, he refers to the fact that he's frustrated that people are still buying those other competing champagne labels when he's launched his own black-owned business.
But you realize that the entire time he was never talking about Cristal, he was talking about a boycott on Bill Cristal.
Bill Cristal. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the great confusions about all this.
People who understood that from the very beginning, it would make all this.
Of course, to Michael Steele, I want to say thank you for that reference earlier, and I will say it was Lloyd Banks who famously said, "The ice on my neck keeps the Cristal cold." Yes. Also a Bill Cristal reference that's just now being unearthed.
Fantastic. Ari Melber. You can get a lot more of this on The Beat weekdays at 6 p.m. Eastern. Thanks, Ari. Good to see you. Gene Robinson, thank you as always. We'll, of course, be reading your new column in the Washington Post. And Michael Steele, former MI6 agent Michael Steele.
There you go.
Dossier author Michael Steele.
The author of the dossier.
What is going on
According to Sean Spicer.
Michael, is there a tape? Yes or no, Michael? Is there a tape?
Don't answer that.
Is there a tape?
Don't answer that.
There's always a tape, baby. There's always a tape.
Michael, thank you very much. Have a good weekend.
Right,
we'll have much more on the Michael Cohen story just ahead. Plus,
thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.